guys are welcome to join. Janet, will you come? Come on, we got 2 minutes. You go.
We rise for the Pledge of Allegiance before we get our meeting started. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Harris, call the roll, members, please.
Mr. Ballantyne.
Here.
Ms. Craig.
Here.
Ms. Diaz.
Here.
Mr. Rivera.
Here.
Mr. Smith-Guido.
Here.
Mr. Soto. Here. President Reichenbach.
Here. Approval of the minutes for the December 10th, 2019 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Council comments from the public? Hearing none. Mr. Harris.
Mr. Ballantyne.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Mr. Rivera.
Aye.
Mr. Smith-Guido.
Aye.
Mr. Soto.
Aye.
And President Reichenbach.
Aye. Proclamations, honors, awards, and resolutions of recognition.
We have one tonight. Oh, I'm sorry.
Have one?
We do have.
Yeah. Is that okay?
Come on up.
Good evening, council. Very exciting. Do we know who is receiving Neighbor of the Month today? Guys, okay, well, this is very exciting. It's with great honor I get to acknowledge Tanae Darby this evening. I first met Tanae at a neighborhood meeting. Her passion and commitment to serve was so noticeable. She just stood out amongst the others in the room. I had an overwhelming feeling of wanting to get to know this person more. I felt an instant connection with her vision and value in serving our community. Tanae applied to Neighborhood Leaders Academy this summer, and wow, once again, she wowed everyone. She again excelled as a leader, took her project of community building to a whole new level. Tanae asked her neighbors what were the needs in their neighborhood of South Marshall Street. Residents stated lighting, our street and alley feel dark and feel unsafe. Her project included LED lighting posts for her neighbors and sensor lighting for the alley. She also reached out to Thaddeus Stevens for support. Just recently, Tanae organized canvassing with neighbors and knocked on doors to advise residents of potential water shutoffs. She also participates in Leadership Lancaster, Project Activate with Lancaster Community Foundation, and is a local committee sector representative. Tanae is a model resident, a true community leader, and with so much honor, we recognize her today with Neighbor of the Month. A round of applause for my good friend Tanae Darby.
Come on up, please.
I am so proud of you.
Please feel free to share. You certainly earned it.
I'm honored. I love my city. I love the Southeast. And I mean, I've been here for years. It's just, I've been behind the scenes and I decided to come out and share my talents and love with the city. So I appreciate this recognition.
You are quite welcome.
And you get $50.
And can I just say today, I know, you can go ahead and sit. I don't want you to have to stand. I think something that really shows the quality of a person is not just the amount of time they spend in their community, but the people that you motivate and that look up to you, that want to do the same things. And I can tell you in the last 6 months, I have talked to so many people who have met you or have taken part in things with you, and you're just a motivator. Like, you just lead by example. You do. And that is not a skill set that's easily acquired, and you've done it. I can tell you as personally as my own family, I had a conversation with my own daughter last night who was blessed enough to have an interaction with you during Leadership Lancaster, and she couldn't stop talking about, or an event, there was an event that she met you at, and she couldn't stop talking about how motivating that you were because of how much you cared about the community. So just keep doing what you're doing, because you're leading a whole new generation of people. So thank you. You appreciate it. Appreciate it. So we will move on to our first public comment period that is reserved for residents who contacted the city clerk prior to tonight's meeting. I would again ask that you limit the duration of your comments to 3 minutes. Mr. Harris, I know we have a few people that called ahead. Who do we have first?
First, Mr. President, we have Dottie Almoni.
Okay. Good evening. If you could just share your name and your street, that would be wonderful. And you can move the microphone to suit your fit. Yep.
My actual title is Sister Dottie Almoni. I am a deaconess at the Lutheran Church. I actually live in Manheim Township on Sunrise Avenue. I am part of the Poor People's Campaign and a faith leader. And first of all, I want to thank you for not penalizing those renters by shutting off their water due to the failures of their landlords to comply with the upgrade of the water meters. I was really happy to hear that because that was the main reason I was going to come this evening. However, I think this is a symptom of a larger problem we have in Lancaster and how we treat those who are on the margins economically. Those who rent are at the mercy of their landlords and many times do not have the luxury to relocate due to financial difficulties. Landlords are not being held accountable for basic repairs or improvements, even though the tenants are dutifully paying their rent. Others face unjust eviction or are asked to relocate due to gentrification. And my daughter teaches in Fulton Elementary School as a second grade teacher and tells me that they are losing families due to the lack of affordable housing. And lack of affordable housing, or should I say lack of acceptable affordable housing, disproportionately affects not only low-income individuals, but people of color, the elderly, people on public assistance, or Social Security due to a disability or mental health issue. And being forced out of the city also creates barriers to public transportation for those who do not own automobiles. Many of these persons have called Lancaster City for much, if not all, of their lives. And as a faith leader who works with the community meal program downtown, operates a clothing bank out of our church, and is a member of the Poor People's Campaign, I continually am hearing stories about the economic struggles of having to choose between purchasing food or paying utility bills. Now, to make things worse, many are in fear of losing their current housing situation. Others live at the mercy of their landlord in hopes of having at least a decent place to live. And this time of year reminds me of another family who suffered from lack of adequate housing when it came time for the birth of Jesus. This family, too, had to make do with what was available and was even forced to flee their home, or in other words, become refugees due to those in power who wanted to stay in power. And we talk about Lancaster as being the refugee capital of the world. But let's make sure it's not because we are creating our own refugees who need to flee Lancaster City because they're unable to afford basic, adequate housing, which will disrupt their children's education and possibly lose access to public transportation. Because all people want the chance to live in a community that values them, values their property, and bestows upon them the dignity that all of God's creation deserve. And I know you're also pondering the future of the old St. Joe's Hospital, which I went to nursing school many years ago as well. Think about how your actions will impact all people in Lancaster and make sure that your decisions don't marginalize the most vulnerable in our city. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I know that I would love the opportunity to be part of the solution as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Harris, who do we have next this evening?
Next, Mr. President, we have Tim Seats Brown.
Evening, sir.
Good evening. I'm Tim Seitz Brown, and I'm a Lutheran pastor, and I'm also with the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival. And I'm here at the invitation of my friends that live on West Vine Street. They asked me to come and be present with them and to speak about the situation. And with Deacon Almoni, I'm really happy that the water shutoffs are not going to happen, because to tell you the truth, when I was hearing that some of them were going to lose their water and all the consequences of that, I was not in a very good mood and did not have a very Christmas spirit. So thank you for boosting my mood. And I don't care if you say Merry Christmas, Happy Holiday, or whatever, as long as they're doing okay, I'm okay, and my soul is at rest, because I don't feel right till all the residents of this city are right. And what I'm learning from my friends is that economic development has to include those that are at the bottom, that we have our Poor People's Campaign sign, everybody's got a right to live. And I had a Bible verse, and by the way, I have to cheat and look at my little cross. There's a passage that says, I was thirsty and you gave me a drink. And so I want to say, well done to you all, that you're making sure that all of our residents in this city have safe drinking water and a place to bathe, and I look forward to working with all of you, and I recommend my friends on Vine Street. They have a lot of great ideas, and so really I'm just here to back them up and to say, listen to them. I think you need to be paying attention to their voices. So you all, we were wondering what we were supposed to call you, and I call you icons of God. You're made in the image of God, but I don't know if you say honorable or whatever. What's the proper
Counselor is
etiquette?
fine.
Council
Counselor is
people?
fine. Sure.
So you guys are bigger than that in my book. You're icons of the divine, and thank you for letting me speak, and blessings to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming and sharing. We appreciate it. Mr. Harris, who do we have next this evening?
Yes, Mr. President. Next, we have Eileen Gregg.
Good evening, ma'am.
I know about these things now.
I was going to see if you remembered. You did.
I'm Eileen Gregg of 118 North Water Street, apartment 303, Lancaster. I recently sent an email to Mr. Larry Cohen, the Executive Director of Lancaster Parking Authority, asking for clarification of the city's role in the selection of R&R design for the facade of the library garage to be constructed in Ewell Plaza. Mr. Cohen wrote, the Lancaster Parking Authority is accepting of the art that is deemed agreeable by the governing body, in this case, the Public Art Advisory Board and the city. There is a lot of discussion about the process, about which Mr. Smith-Waddell apologized profusely at the November 12 council meeting, and about which Mayor Sirachi asked at the November 4 council committee meeting, how can we do this better? But the process is not the main issue. The main issue is the art itself, its basic component being a canvas of aluminum tubes. It doesn't matter that citizens are told that they have a choice in how the tubes are arranged, vertical, horizontal, or diagonal, or that they may choose the color pattern of the tubing, or the words or pictures to be painted on them. The problem is the aluminum tubes, not what is done with them. Are we to understand that this basic element of this art project, the aluminum tubing, is not subject to change? That the public may not suggest an alternative to these aluminum tubes, or to the bright yellow glass panels on the southwest corner of the 7-foot-high stairwell of the building? Can you imagine the glare of a midday sun reflected by the yellow glass panels on that stairwell? This is the antithesis of the green wall that some citizens proposed in the mayor's community meetings last summer to gather ideas for Lancaster Square. Question, why was a public art project not a matter of discussion at those meetings? Other questions are, is the Lancaster Parking Authority telling us that the use of aluminum tubing is non-negotiable because it was approved by City Council? And does Hamill Associates, as deciding the rest of the building, have no control over that building's west wall? Do they build the other 3 walls and wait for R&R to bring its west wall on a trailer bed truck from Miami to Lancaster? By the way, I was told just today that Hamill Associates does not have any control over that west wall. And if there needs to be a public art component added to the building, why not have a local firm do it? I understand that Clare Brothers of Lidditz has expressed an interest in presenting a proposal. Why were they not contacted by the city during its search process this spring? Why was R&R chosen so early in the selection process? And indeed, was the selection process conducted? How was it conducted, and on what authority? There are other questions without answers. In an online survey by Lancaster newspapers, there were twice as many votes against the R&R conceptual drawing as there were in favor of it. The majority of gallery owners in the city when contacted said they were disappointed in the selection of the proposed artwork by R&R Design, yet R&R Design was chosen anyway. And the question is, why? And what about repairs, which certainly will be needed from time to time? The facade artwork, we have learned, is covered by artist copyright laws that require that only the artist may do the repairs. Is the city going to include covering the artist's travel and hotel expenses as well as artist's commission in future budgets? So what is the solution to the problems created by the intrusion at this late stage of the design of R&R? The solution is to build the library parking garage using its original specifications before the added component of a public art project was introduced by the city's director of public art. If citizens want a public art component to be added, that can be done at a later date. We ask the Hamill Architects, a local firm, be authorized to use its original design for the facade of the library garage of a year ago, a design that was approved by the Lancaster Historical Commission as appropriate for Lancaster's downtown historic district. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Mr. Harris, who do we have next this evening?
Next, Mr. President, we have April Copenhaver.
Good evening.
Good evening, April Copenhaver, 19-21 North Mulberry, and still 253 and 255 West King Street. So I just wanted to acknowledge our firefighters. They were incredible. And after I spoke on Tuesday night, Wednesday, early morning, my building caught on fire. And by the time a neighbor came running to my front door screaming and knocking, hurry, hurry, there's smoke in my building because your building's on fire. By the time I even got to my emergency exit door of Mulberry Art Studios, I could smell the intensity and the wood burning. And the firefighters were already out there with their fire line suited up, their masks on, and doing their thing. And I think the most moving thing to me was seeing our firefighter kneel on the ground while another firefighter strapped on his oxygen. That was really very touching. And one of them came over to me and said, "Weren't you at the mayor's budget meeting telling us what a good job we do?" And I said, "Yeah, that was me. And I knew you did a good job, but I didn't need to see it so up close and personal." And all of them acknowledged and said how sorry they were that I was a friend of the city, and they felt bad. And thank you for calling me. And Izzy called me. Where's my friend with the red hair? There she is. Yeah, she reached out to me. The mayor's office reached out to me. I'm forgetting her name. The woman who had run for Congress and didn't make it. What? Jess King, there she is. Where is she? Thank you, dear. I appreciate all that. So what I'm saying, guys, is, we're all in this together. We're all it's a big collection of neighborhoods. That's what I was talking about last time. And I want to kind of put this R&R story to bed. I really do. I don't know why we're so attached to them. Like, what is this firm in Miami? Why are they so important? They don't pay any taxes to Lancaster. Let's stop and have a mid-course correction. Let's forgive the $15,000 R&R was given. We're going to, create a fundraiser, reimburse. It was only $5,000 of public money. The $10,000 they were given was private donation. We can make an apology letter to them. We can have a fundraiser and give back all the $15,000. But for $15,000, let's not make a mistake for the next 45 years that our community of neighborhoods has to put up with. I have not found one community leader. I'd like to meet them. Somebody told me, who was it at the meeting? The guy that's in charge of Penstone. He said he had somebody come and tell him what a good idea it is. I'd still like to this day know the name of that person, and I'd like to have a private conversation. If you can supply me people who are happy about this, let me know. I'd love to meet with them. but I'd like to put it to bed for once, and I'd like to volunteer that we'll give a fundraiser at Mulberry Art Studios. We'll reimburse you the $15,000, whatever, and we'll put it to bed, and we'll work with local people. So thank you all for being concerned about my building. I don't want any more fires, and I don't want to see anybody hurt. So that's where I'm at. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Harris, do we have anyone else who called ahead?
Yes, Mr. President. Next is Art Morris.
Mayor, good evening.
Good evening, Arthur Morris, 434 West Chestnut Street. And I've never seen council look so great. All look nice tonight.
We like to dress up for you.
I doubt that, but in any event, you look great. I'm here to talk about recent hirings, specifically Director of Community Planning and Economic Development Chris Delfs, and Director of Public Works Stephen Campbell. Both of these individuals have strong backgrounds and experience. However, when you compare their experience with the requirements of their new position, there appears to be gaps. In the case of Chris Delfs, who began his employment July 8th with the city, he has comprehensive planning in a variety of areas, including comprehensive plans, transportation, and some public works. His resume mentions other areas, including work related to economic development. However, the position with the city requires supervision and oversight of building code administration, housing inspections, health bureau, and detailed economic development. His resume had little, in my opinion, or anything related to these responsibilities other than his work on comprehensive planning. The city seemed to acknowledge this gap when they retained Randy Patterson, who previously had the job and retired from this position. They retained him as a consultant. His 12-month agreement is to provide consulting services to assist operations of this department. His hourly rate is $125 an hour for 10 to 15 hours per week for the length of 12 months. This would be $32,500 for 5 hours per week. It would be $65,000 for 10 hours a week, and it would be $97,500 for 15 hours to assist a person who is budgeted to earn $146,795 in 2020. I don't know the amount being billed, but it would be good to know. When Randy Patterson was an employee, he did not need assistance and was paid almost the same as the position currently pays. In the case of Stephen Campbell, who begins employment in January with a salary of $150,296, he will receive 240 hours of vacation each year, and if you include regular sick and holidays, that would amount to about 1 day a week, or he would work 4 days a week on average. He has background in capital projects for housing, schools, nonprofits. He taught sustainable development. He did sustainable project management for an architectural firm and government agencies. He was an architect for 2 years after college. He has a very interesting background. However, the city position is management and oversight of engineering, streets, parks, public buildings, stormwater, which the city, as you know, has a consent decree with the federal government, which is very important, and also water and wastewater plants. Mr. Campbell is not an engineer. For the last 60 years and probably much longer, Lancaster's Public Works Director has been an engineer and oversaw all of these works for the good of the public. Much of it related to public safety, such as safe drinking water. In summary, both Chris Delfs and Stephen Campbell appear to be excellent, capable people, but in their areas of expertise. I wish them well. I just think there are key gaps when you match up their expertise with the job requirements, and I believe the public should be made aware of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Harris, do we have anyone else who called ahead?
No, we do not, Mr. President.
Thank you. We will move to reports requested by council this evening. Love Your Block quarterly report and announcement of fall grant recipients. Our Vistas, our wonderful Vistas. Hello.
Handouts.
All right.
Oh, boy. Thank you. We actually, I don't know if you know this, we actually have pop-up
It's okay.
screens that, it's cool.
We'll take it for now. Thank you. Good evening. Floor is yours.
Hello, thank you for having us this evening. We are here to give our quarterly report on our Love Your Block project, to tell you about our first 3 months here as Vistas. You can go ahead.
Can I ask a favor? Can you just introduce yourself? Because there's probably
yes,
people here who
sorry,
haven't met. No, it's okay. I just want people to know who you
My name's
are.
Renee Adelman, and
I'm Christian Cassidy Amstutz, and we are the two Love Your Block Vistas working with the city.
Great. Thank you.
during our first 3 months, we have met with over 30 community groups and partners or organizations within the city of Lancaster. We have used these connections to help get communications from the city to the community, particularly in the Southeast where our work is currently focused. In November, we traveled to Dallas for our Cities of Service Training Academy. Cities of Service is our sponsoring organization, where we connected with Love Your Block teams from 9 other cities. We shared best practices and learned valuable community engagement techniques. We also closed the fall 2019 grant applications, which we will go into more detail in a moment. But before that, we wanted to mention the South End Park. So Neighborhood Leader Academy graduate Kirsten Krimmel worked with us and the previous Vistas to pilot a park revitalization project at South End Park. This pilot became the Love Your Block Park Grant, which allows community group members to adopt a park and use LYB funds to complete a project. Through this revitalization process, a mural depicting anthropomorphized versions of different streets in Lancaster was put up. The creatures were designed by students from Hand and Lincoln Middle Schools and combined into a cohesive mural by Adam Serrano and Sophie Roman. The main painting day took place on Sunday, November 10th, and over 15 children from the neighborhood showed up to help paint during a 4-hour period. It was a fun time, and it turned out great. And one of the main question is, how many streets, Lancaster streets, can you name from the mural?
Anything come to mind?
There we go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it-
Yeah.
Perfect.
Lemon, orange.
Yeah.
I think
That is cool.
we've gotten most of them.
Yeah.
Great.
The robot is Furnace.
It's a
Yes.
furnace. You can see the flame.
Beaver dolphin,
Yeah.
exactly. The tree is poplar. That one's probably the most challenging.
Yeah.
Yes, and it can be found right at us at Furnace and Beaver at South End Park. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. But
Yeah.
can we move forward one?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can we go forward one? So I'm going to discuss the Love Your Block Fall 2019 round that we just had, and we are happy to announce that we had from 11 grant applications, were able to award 5 grants that are actually in the midst of going on at this moment and will be taking place as we move forward into the warmer months when it's a little more possible to take projects on like that. So actually our first one was working in tandem with Crispus Attucks and Derek Smith there, and the Community Action Partnership as well, which was their Light Up Southeast event, which was the 3rd annual that took place this past Saturday. And that was hosted out of Crispus Attucks. They had a trunk or treat in the back parking lot going on. There was food that was served. They had a huge performance within their main community room. And then 8 o'clock, we all went out to the Martin Luther King Plaza, which is right at North and Duke, and watched the tree get lit that they have there. It's a 14-foot tall artificial tree. And they had a Santa, and it was a great time. We don't have an exact count, but I counted over 150 people at the event, so it was really well attended. And there was a cleanup day that was in part and parcel of the application for the Love Your Block grant that went in association with that. And in fact, we'll be having more as we move forward through the holiday season. And just as long as the lights are up, will be the different organizations that Crispus Attucks and CAP were able to partner with will continue to have cleanup days. Beyond that, moving forward, we also have another project coming out of Crispus Attucks, and with CAP, Brittany Mitchell there is going to be putting in a community garden on the premises of CAP. So we'll be looking forward to doing that once it's in the more spring-like time. Along with that, the Mustertown Neighbors, which is the new body that was formed out of the Howard Avenue block neighbors from last year, and the Locust Street Neighbors are partnering to work on the Shippen and Locust intersections right by In the Light Ministries. So they will be priming a wall that will have a new mural put on it sometime later this year. They'll also be expanding the Garden in the Light community garden, which is there, to have more raised beds, more beds in general, and just expanding the whole footprint of that. And then they will also be sanding and revarnishing the doors of In the Light Ministries at that intersection. We also are working with Jabari Smith to install 2 new trash cans along South Plum Street, one at Plum and Dauphin and one at the parking lot that is between Plum and Dauphin and Plum and Juniata. Thank you very much. Additionally, Kirsten Krimmel, who we highlighted just a moment ago, who worked with us in the pilot program for the Parks Love Your Block grant, she applied and was awarded funds to install 10 new windows into the South End Park community building for airflow and just increased pleasantness of use. They're looking to start a new neighborhood group in that area and hope to use that building for meetings as it becomes a more habitable space. And finally, that was all of them. Cool. And can we go ahead one more? Great. So moving forward, we'll try not to get in your hair too much until we're another 3 months through. We do have a couple exciting events coming up. We're going to be hosting an orientation event here in this very room for our grant recipients, just going over with them the organizational strategies we'd like to use to work with them, seeing what other kinds of expansions on their ideas they might have, going about the actual work of getting those projects together, and also in terms of metrics that we like to collect.
January 30th, there's going to be a neighborhood group leaders meeting that we're helping with. It's the Department of Neighborhood Engagement mainly, but we're assisting. February 14th, we will be launching our Spring 2020 grants. So if anyone has any ideas or knows anyone who's interested in applying, you can look forward to February 14th. We also have a few other projects we're working on. We're working on a storytelling project to kind of collect the qualitative stories of Love Your Block and what's going on in the Southeast, as opposed to just the quantitative data. And we also have a bold goal of, with Adopt a Block, to have the entire Southeast adopted by the time we leave. So hopefully we can do that, but
There's a lot of blocks down there.
So if anyone knows anyone who wants to adopt a block,
And then also just a final word before we finish our presentation to you. We have also, just throughout our work, but while mainly focusing on Love Your Block, we also have become, we've gotten, the great privilege to be able to assist Millsy and the Department of Neighborhood Engagement with a lot of other things, especially within our targeted neighborhoods. So we, especially with the recent water meter crisis that's been going on, we've been assisting in terms of communication between block leaders and affected addresses. And we've also had the ability to help out with census that's been going forward in terms of helping to reach the hard to count populations, which within the Southeast, in terms of children under 5, non-native English speakers, lower income individuals, is obviously a larger proportion of the area. And then if we could just move forward one more, we just want to thank our partners as well, who help enable all of the projects that have been done and will be continued to work on as we move forward. And then we just have one last slide, which is thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate your work.
Thank you.
Thank you for updating us. It's certainly helpful to kind of hear what you're doing as you're going through the process. And please continue at any time to come back. Thank you. We will move to interim reports of committees of council. I believe Councilor Ballantyne, do you have an interim report this evening?
Yes, Mr. President. Thank you. During our last council meeting, I reported on the significant changes to the budget proposal. And tonight, I'm going to give the highlights of the year that was and 2020 goals, which were presented during our December 7th meeting. Before I begin, let me say this. The work we counselors do is important and serious. However, I think sometimes it's okay to be a little creative with how we share the information. Do you mind if I get a little creative?
You're very creative. Go ahead.
Great. Tonight, I'm going to slow things down a bit. Hope you'll humor me as I put this to music because everything is better put to music. Can you hear the music?
There it is.
So with Community Planning and Economic Development Department, Director Chris Delf started us off that Saturday by setting the good mood, giving the good news from the Community Planning and Economic Development Department. Construction investment in the city this year through November has increased 19% from the previous year for a total of $274 million. That's a lot of zeros. As a result of over 2,500 building permit applications. Although investment in residential construction fell this year to just over 19 million, down from 33 million last year, investment in commercial construction increased by 29% to $254.9 million. Some of the significant highlights and land developments in 2019, Stadium Row Apartments, 151 North Queen, and City Fire Stations 1 and 3 reconstruction. 2020 key initiatives include major expansion of city lead elimination efforts for a goal of 710 lead-safe homes over the next 5 years, various means to address food insecurity in conjunction with community partners, and public arts in neighborhoods. Thank you, Community Planning and Economic Development. Over at Public Works, the department received $4.8 million in grant awards in 2019, ranging from $1,500 to $1.6 million. Again, several zeros. All of which will help to pay for pedestrian safety improvements, Cullington Park design, and public art, as well as the reconstruction of Fire Stations 1 and 3. Some of the accomplishments, the completion of Public Works Operations Center, the installation of boulevard lights and planting trees along both King and Manor Streets, the design of Ewell Plaza, Fire Stations, Cullington Park, and the Water Street Bike Boulevard. The goals for 2020 for Public Works, completion of Cullington Park renovations, substantial completion of Fire Station 1 with early 2021 occupancy, safe streets, active transportation plan, and Water Street design completed. As far as the Stormwater Fund, they've accomplished planting more than 1,000 trees, completing 10 green infrastructure projects, and they developed an urban forest management plan. Their goals, to continue implementation of green infrastructure projects in partnership with planned capital improvements. Thanks to Public Works and all the unsung heroes who make our parks and rec and water and sewer something that we hardly ever notice because they keep things flowing so well. At the Bureau of Police, Captain Umstead reported that 29 accomplishments for the Bureau include responding to approximately 55,000 calls of service year to date. Police social work started in September, and officers attended over 10,000 hours of training, such as de-escalation and other various specialties like leadership development, community outreach, and crisis intervention. Also, the officers worked to get to know us better. They did this by attending more than 60 community engagement events, neighborhood block parties like Coffee with a Cop, Paint with an Officer, reading events at different elementary schools, Toys for Tots, Shop with a Cop, and National Night Out. So for their 2020 priorities, they want to continue to focus on organized community engagement with designated community outreach section, continue with organized traffic enforcement with a focus on large trucks, speeding, and pedestrian safeway, and begin working with Blueprints for Addiction Recovery and their Second Chance program, which helps people get into a drug addiction recovery program. For the protection and service efforts and always working to better engage with our community, I thank all of our officers. In regards to the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Engagement, just like the song says, all you need is love. And that's exactly what Director Millsy Carrasco in the Department of Neighborhood Engagement delivers. Love Your Block awarded Neighborhood Project microgrants this year for programs like Mayor's Block Parties, Lunch with the Mayor, and Neighborhood Leaders Academy, all sponsored by donors. 1,334 residents in 18 neighborhood groups were positively impacted by these programs. 2 additional initiatives started this office have grown and been taken over by other groups, such as the Women of Color Brunch and Hispanic Business Owners Breakfast. 2020 goals include, in January, the Office of Neighborhood Engagement plans to launch a language access program, neighborhood leaders' quarterly meetings, and inaugural Neighborhood Week in May. Dawn is like the city's love letter to all of us residents. There's nothing like seeing people come together, neighbor to neighbor. Am I not lying, Ms. Millsy? Thank you. So with the Fire Bureau, people say there's something about a man in uniform. Well, that must be true because Fire Chief Little brought the heat when he gave his report. As of December 7th, the Fire Bureau responded to 3,653 emergency calls in 2019, and that's expected to reach 3,900 by the end of the year. While the fire calls for the year have declined, an increase in response to medical calls has continued to increase. 2019 recruitment efforts resulted in 150 applications received, leading to a certified list of 45 top scorers, of which 8 are expected to be hired. In the coming year, the Bureau is planning to purchase new protective hoods that will block airborne particulate matter, replace turnout gear with lighter, newer technology gear, begin demolition and reconstruction of fire stations 1 and 3, and continue professional training and partnerships with the Lancaster County Rescue Task Force and the Lancaster County CERT Team and other associations. To all the brave men and women who help to save the lives and the homes in our community, you are our heroes, and we greatly appreciate you. So for administrative services, wrapping it up, Mr. Hopkins shared major accomplishments of his department included refinancing of the 2009 note achieving $2 million in saving, zeros again. PUC sewer rate case settlement, new rates to be effective in the first quarter in 2020. We had a clean, no change 2018 audit, highly successful grant development, including HUD-led grant, the largest single grant award in the city's history, and he expanded the wellness program. In addition to putting the focus on the well-being of city employees, as always, Mr. Hopkins, the city has its mind on its money and its money on its mind. Thank you for you and your department for keeping us fiscally responsible and your tremendous stewardship of our resources. These are just a few select highlights from each department. I encourage each of you to look further into their accomplishments and thank them for the work that they do. With that, let me just say how much I appreciate you letting me do this my way. And Mr. President, in short, that concludes my first, my last, my only special Slow Jam finance report.
And just when you think you've seen it all,
had to do
that's going out in style. Thank you, Mr. Bellson.
I just wish you all would understand how many times I've given Councilor Ballantyne grief for his monotone, professional, serious way of delivering information because he's fantastic at it. And he didn't tell me he was going to do that. and he did it. And he beat me. And I can't say anything about it. So, Councilor Ballantyne, you are the man. And I will never say that to you again, ever. Oh, all right. We're going to get to our legislative agenda now, which is going to be equally as exciting, I can guarantee. And these are going to be items that are going to be voted on this evening. So we will start off with ordinances for final passage. Administration Bill number 17, 2019.
Yes, Mr. President. An ordinance of the Council of the City of Lancaster, County of Lancaster, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, appropriating the specific sums estimated to be required for the specific purposes of the city government hereinafter set forth during the year 2020, allowing for a severance provision, providing for the repeal of inconsistent ordinances, and providing for an effective date.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Councilor Ballantyne.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this point, it's me and Mr. Hopkins the whole way through. Anything you want to add, Patrick? It was up for first reading, I think, the last meeting. November 27th. Yep.
Thank you. Any other comments from council? From the public? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Ballantyne.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Mr. Grapera.
Aye.
Mr. Smith-Waddell.
Aye.
Mr. Soto.
Aye.
President Reichenbach.
Aye. Administration Bill number 18, 2019.
An ordinance amending the Code of the City of Lancaster, Chapter 270, Taxation, Article 4, Property and Residence Tax, Section 270-26, Levy and Rate, by fixing the tax rate at 11.7 mils on property in the City of Lancaster for general revenue purposes, allowing for a severance provision, providing for the repeal of inconsistent ordinances, and providing for an effective date.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion and a second. Councilor Ballantyne.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pretty much all this did was just kind of add that there's no movement on the millage rate, and it stays fixed at 11.70.
Thank you. Council comments from the public? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Ballantyne.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Mr. Grapera.
Aye.
Mr. Smith-Waddell.
Aye.
Mr. Soto.
Aye.
President Reichenbach.
Aye. Administration Bill number 19, 2019.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Lancaster, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, amending Section 295-58 and 295-60 of the Code of the City of Lancaster to change the water rates for customers within city limits effective January 1st, 2020, providing for the repeal of inconsistent ordinances, providing for the severability of the ordinance, and providing that the ordinance shall take effect as provided by Pennsylvania law.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion and a second. Councilor Ballantyne.
Thank you, Mr. President. As Mr. Harris stated, this pretty much just kind of fixed the water rates for water service per 1,000 gallons, anywhere between the first 25,000 to up to 1,800,000 gallons of water.
Thank you. Council comments from the public? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Ballantyne.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Mr. Grapera.
Aye.
Mr. Smith-Waddell.
Aye.
Mr. Soto.
Aye.
And President Reichenbach.
Aye. Administration Bill number 20, 2019.
An ordinance providing for tax exemption for certain improvements to deteriorated property, residential, deteriorated property, commercial, deteriorated property, mixed use, and new construction of residential structures in deteriorated areas pursuant to Pennsylvania Acts 42 of 1977 and 76 of 1977, defining certain exempt property, providing for an exemption period, and establishing a schedule of percentage exemptions for that time period.
Motion to approve?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Councilor Ballantyne.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't really have much to add to this one. Anything, Mr. Hopkins?
No, just to remind everybody that this is basically a readoption of the current LERTA schedules that have been in place for the last 10 years. The current LERTA schedule for the city, the county, and school district taxes expires in December of this year, so this is adding another 10 years to the current schedule.
Thank you. Any comments from council? From the public? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Ballantyne.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Mr. Grapera.
Aye.
Mr. Smith-Waddell.
Aye.
Mr. Soto.
Aye.
President Reichenbach.
Aye. And move into resolutions that'll be voted on this evening. We'll begin with Administration Resolution Number 72, 2019.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster amending the schedule of fees and charges for solid waste and recycling services provided by the city's contractor to owners of residential properties and owners of opt-in properties to become effective January 1st, 2020.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Councilor Ballantyne.
Yes, I just want to make an announcement that this resolution is being adopted. It has a minor change from what was reviewed in the committee to correct an error. To give a little more insight, the fee charged by collection agency for delinquent trash bills was changed to $25 or 30%, whichever is greater, from $25 or 25%. This corrects an administrative error and sets the percentage amount to the same amount as a 2018 resolution adopted by council. In practical terms, this doesn't change anything. The collection fee for delinquent bills is always $25 because the quarterly bill is $60 and 30% of that is $18.
Thank you. Other council comments from the public? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Ballantyne.
Aye.
Ms. Gregg.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Mr. Gropera.
Aye.
Mr. Smith-Waddell.
Aye.
Mr. Soto.
Aye.
And President Reichenbach.
Aye. Administration Resolution Number 73, 2019.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Lancaster, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, amending Section 24929 of the Code of the City of Lancaster to change the quarter annual sewer rentals for customers within city limits, providing for the industrial waste surcharges for customers inside the city, providing for the repeal of inconsistent ordinances, providing for the severability of the ordinance, and providing that the ordinance shall take effect on the first day of January 2020.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion and a second. Counselor Ballantyne.
Not much to add other than what Mr. Harris had read. Mr. Hopkins, anything? Okay.
Thank you. Council comments from the public? Mayor?
I didn't come to speak of this, Arthur Morris, 434 West Chestnut Street, but there's been absolutely no public comment tonight, very little on council. The water and sewer rates are going up, I believe I read $200, $50 a quarter. I'm not concerned about me or people on council paying that. I'm concerned about the poor and people in poverty paying that. They're the ones that are going to have the hard time paying for it. And there was comments made that, well, if people can save the amount of water they use, they can drop the bill. Really? I mean, really, there was an editorial on this in the newspaper.
I'm sure.
And because the city made that comment. It came out, I think, at the mayor's office or Patrick saying, one way we could do this if people use less water. Well, the truth of the matter is you could reduce the amount of water. It wouldn't reduce your bill much because the city has to get so much money to pay for employees. So it would save some chemicals and other things, but that's not the solution. It's not the solution for poor people. And to say that we need all these improvements, we got to keep doing them year after year. No, you make decisions between doing the improvement this year or next year, or putting it off. You make decisions as you do in your own home. Do you replace all the water lines in your home? Do you do this or not? There's very little debate going on in this city with that. And yes, there's no tax increase in real estate this year, but there was last year and there probably will be next year. And there's big increases. And I hate to be here saying this. I didn't come to say anything, but I hear no comment about this and about the significant increase. It is a big amount if you're poor to pay $50 a quarter more. It's a lot. And I don't know how they do it. And it's incumbent on council and the mayor to do their best to reduce this. It is not easy. I'm not suggesting it is easy, but we can do better than this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor.
Any other comments? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Ballantyne.
Aye.
Ms. Gregg.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Mr. Gropera.
Aye.
Mr. Smith-Waddell.
Aye.
Mr. Soto.
Aye.
And President Reichenbach.
Aye. Move into our second public comment period. This is open for comments about issues that were not on tonight's agenda. I would again ask that you limit the duration of your comments to 3 minutes. Is there anybody this evening who'd like to speak to council? Yes, sir. Come on up.
Hi.
Good evening.
My name is Nathan Warren. I'm from Millersville.
Hi.
I'm a member of the Lancaster Healthcare Rights Committee of Put People First PA and a part of the Poor People's Campaign. I'm also a student teacher, and I take 2 buses to get into work. First, I take the Route 16 bus and then the Route 2. In between the 2 buses, I have a wait period of about 10 minutes. I catch the Route 2 bus on Queen Street near Binns Park. First, the benches disappeared. They were moved across the road, then further up the street. Fewer places to sit made it harder to be a disabled person and take the bus. On Friday, October 11th, as I headed to wait for the two, I saw that the bus shelters were gone. Other early morning workers commented on the disappearance. Nobody had any idea why the bus shelters were removed. The next week, one woman asked me if I had seen the Route 13 bus, which also used to stop there. She missed a doctor's appointment because the bus stop had changed to be up the street and around the corner. I almost missed my bus too when it didn't stop at the usual spot. No passengers had been told that the bus stops were changing, and now we had no way to stay dry while we waited for the bus in bad weather. The Red Rose Transit Authority posted a notice of the bus stop change on their website, but passengers should not be expected to check online every morning in order to get to their destination on time. This notice was posted online on Thursday, the October 10th. By then, the benches at the bus stop were already taken away. I felt, as I'm sure many of the other bus riders felt, pushed away. It felt like being controlled without our knowledge or without our needs taken into account. Public transportation is important to the well-being of a community. Disabled people like me rely on public transit, as do people who can't afford the endless costs of a car. Buses reduce traffic on the road and output less pollution than if every rider drove in a separate car. The city's sending a message that these benefits and that these people do not matter. The people's perspective needs to be prioritized. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who'd like to comment this evening? Yes, sir. Come on up. Good evening.
Hello, I'm Matthew Rosing. I live at West Vine Street.
Hi.
My name is Matthew Rosing. I am the co-coordinator of the Lancaster Healthcare Rights Committee of Put People First PA and a leader in the Pennsylvania Poor People's Campaign and National Call for Moral Revival. I'm here today to address the water shutoffs that are occurring throughout their community. These water shutoffs are a violation of the human right to water, and we demand an end to the shutoffs immediately. Residents may not just lose their access to human right of water, having their water shut off could also result with them becoming homeless. If a resident has their water shut off for 72 hours, the property could be condemned, and the residents of said property would be forced to vacate the premises immediately, thus leading to homelessness. No one should ever go without water. The poor and dispossessed have been the most affected by this decision made by the Lancaster City Administration to enact what the Pennsylvania Poor People's Campaign referred to as a large-scale water shutoff in the city underway in Lancaster on December 11th Facebook post. The poor across this nation are under constant threat of losing our human rights on the state and federal level, and our local government here in Lancaster has expressed throughout this past year on numerous occasions that their hands are tied on such issues and that the fight for our human rights lay solely in the hands of our state and federal governments. Yet this threat of losing our human right of water was a decision made by our local city administration. Our building was on the water shutoff list, and the threat of losing our water and the possibility of us facing homelessness set us into a frenzy of severe stress and worry, not just for ourselves, but for the thousands of others who also found themselves at risk due to this threat. So we immediately went into action, and that's why we are here again tonight. We appreciate the Lancaster City Administration for removing rental properties from the water shutoff list. No tenant should have to be caught in the crossfire between their local government and their landlords. Although rental properties have been removed from the water shutoff list, these still leave homeowners at risk. At Put People First PA, when we say everybody in, nobody out, we mean it. We fight for everyone. When you lift up from the bottom, we all rise. Just because someone is a homeowner, it doesn't mean they aren't poor. The Lancaster Healthcare Rights Committee of Put People First PA are here to demand that the City Administration of Lancaster, PA stop all water shutoffs immediately and find alternative solutions to see that the water meter upgrade task get done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak this evening? Good evening.
Tammy, West Vine Street. My name is Tammy Rojas. I'm a member of Put People First PA, and I'm on the coordinating committee of the Pennsylvania Poor People's Campaign, a national call for more revival. We're here also to address Lancaster City Council in regards to the rezoning petition being proposed by UPMC. We are here to ask Lancaster City Council to push back against the UPMC petition to rezone the old St. Joseph Hospital from a hospital to a multi-use property of businesses and housing, which is a continuation of the kind of redevelopment that has been swooping through our community like a tsunami and causing mass displacement. We are facing not only losing a much-needed healthcare facility, but also a historical Lancaster legacy for over 135 years. If we don't come together and push back against UPMC, St. Joseph Hospital will be gentrified. This is an important moment in our community's history. Don't let a global healthcare conglomerate corporation like UPMC destroy the history and legacy of what was once St. Joseph Hospital. Let's organize as a community and do this right. The history of St. Joseph Hospital is remarkable, and it should be honored. We are continuing to lose what makes Lancaster, Lancaster. It's time to come together and push back. The Lancaster Healthcare Rights Committee of Put People First PA feels if we are going to look at rezoning possibilities, a more appropriate way to rezone would be to incorporate healthcare and housing for the poor and dispossessed. Or hold out, pull in support from across the state, dig in, and fight for a community hospital for Lancaster. Whatever St. Joe's Hospital becomes, it must be a place that fits the needs of the most vulnerable in our community. This is what we mean when we say, take back St. Joseph's. And this is what we have been organizing around over the past year. Our story around our fight to take back St. Joseph's has been heard by many across this nation. And we have gained both regional and national support in this fight throughout this past year. When UPMC announced the closing of the hospital in Sunbury, PA, residents from that community reached out to us for insight and guidance on how to fight back against UPMC. We stand in solidarity with the community of Sunbury, and we're against the closing of the hospital in that community. The people all across Pennsylvania have been hurt by UPMC in many different ways, in so many different communities across the state. The people of Pennsylvania are ready and itching to take on UPMC statewide. The Lancaster Healthcare Rights Committee of Put People First PA is in full support of this idea and willing to help organize those efforts. We are here to demand the Lancaster City Administration hold true to the promises they've made this past year at City Council meetings, like when you voted unanimously to support the Public Health Care Advocate resolution, and the comments made at the neighborhood meeting for the UPMC site, where rezoning was discussed. We are prepared to take on UPMC for the good of our community. Will you join us in support? We are here to ask you all to state publicly that you will not agree to any rezoning changes proposed for the UPMC site at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments this evening? Hearing none. Jess, do you have a report for the mayor this evening or no? Okay. I have no report of President of the Council this evening, so we'll go to council comments. Any council comments?
If I may.
Sure.
I just want to say to my esteemed colleagues that it's been an honor to serve with you. I thank the community who allowed me to serve in this capacity, and it's just been a joy and quite an experience. And I look forward to seeing what the counselors-elect will do next year and their journey and all the good work that they'll continue to do. So again, thank you.
Thank you for being a wonderful colleague and for that musical interlude, which is going to be the most memorable. Just don't forget to show up January 6th, because we still have one more meeting we have to finish up on. Any other comments of council? Hearing none, can I hear a
I'm sorry.
No, please, sir.
I got to shout out this guy right here, Mr. John Grapera. This is his, well, with the exception of our January 6th meeting, the last meeting of 16 years of faithful service as council member, as council president, as chair of various committees, and advice giver to yours truly, and I'm sure a number of other people. And he, of course, is much too humble and poised to ask for it, but I don't want to let him leave without a round of applause. And
Thank you, Counselor. I appreciate it, and I'll save my farewell speech for the last meeting after the holidays. But I appreciate the thought.
We're planning our music together. We're going to have it's going to be 70s theme. It's going to be amazing. Can't wait. Thank you, Counselor. Any other comments? Hearing none, can I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you all for coming out this evening.
of course.
I'm trying to hold my breath. I'm trying to hide my face. I'm like, and it's my favorite beat too. Like it's like my. It's amazing.
My brother, if I don't see you, have a happy holiday.
Thanks so much. Yeah, no worries.
I could send you.
Hello, Rachel.
Yeah, totally. Now he's told me to do it. I was like, I gotta do it. I'm not gonna do it.
All of us.
I was like, you did it only appreciate.
You hit a home run. Do you need to sign? Let's say you were
Thank you.
have a little form you need to sign. Snap. They get down. Did you have an agenda? Did you get one? Because that'll help you. Let's pick the agendas over there.
Where you going?
Right next door. Joining? Let's do it.
Yeah, I will. I can't do it right now. Good Christmas. Thanks, you too. Merry Christmas. Thank you. Who's this? Easy. Good to see you, man. Nice to see you. Oh, keeping it off, man. Looking good. I am like an inch away from buying one of these ridiculous Peloton bikes because anytime I feel like I can't cycle outside, I get really like it negatively sets my entire day anytime I feel like I can't ride. Which of course is, I told you I just learned to ride this year. Yeah. So it's like a total sea change. But yeah. Well, hey, if you want to go for a ride sometime, all right, hit me up. Sounds good. All right. All right. Take care. Yep. Have a good night. You too. Wrap us up. Good work, man. Good job. I get too pissed off. That's all right. I break a podium over somebody's head. No, you'll be restrained.
You know, if you have a passion for something, you do.
Yeah, I do. But my wife would disown me.
I'm gonna go next door.
I think we need to go home. I'm pretty beat. I'm gonna go to bed.
I struggle to.
Oh my God, these nowadays I turn on the TV and I fall asleep in front of the TV. It's crazy.
What are you gonna do for?
I'm gonna be here. Oddly enough, because my whole family's going to Italy and I'm not.
Why is that?
At first, I only had a fairly short vacation, and then actually F&M, after they bought their tickets, F&M actually extended the vacation by 3 days. So, but to be quite honest with you, it was spend $1,000, fly over, just barely get over jet lag, and come back. And they're going to go skiing, and I'm not going to ski anymore with my hips. And it just looked like a hassle-filled mess. The kids want to ski, I can get that. They're in their 20s, you know. And my wife wants to see her mom, who's 83, and I get that too. I don't know, it just didn't make any sense to me. So,
But it's over Christmas.
yeah.
You're gonna be apart over Christmas.
Oh, I'll be at my sister's house. One sister for Christmas, then I'll go to my other sister's for a day or two down in D.C. area. So, yeah, I'll be alone. I'll be alone. So.
Traveling over the holidays.
I know, and I, you know, even when you want to go skiing, that's the worst time of the year. It's packed. And we had this friend of theirs says, I ski all year round, including the summer. He goes to South America, goes to glaciers. But I don't ski at Christmas. It's too many people. It's no fun. It's horrible. I hate it. They're going tomorrow. And then they'll go up in the mountains to Daniela's family has a house up in the mountains where we used to go before we got our own house at a different mountain. So anyway, they'll go there. Now, I have to go back to work January 2nd, so it's not like they're all coming back after that. So I would have to come back before them anyway. I mean, I could have taken extra days. Like I said, the whole trip just didn't make any sense to me. I didn't want to be too much of a drag on them, but I didn't want to subject myself to it either. Traveling over the holidays is doing a real thing. We usually go somewhere. Last year we went to California and, San Francisco and Lake Tahoe. And the year before, and we also went to Charlotte, North Carolina. My son was living there at the time. Now he's back home again. So we usually go somewhere with somebody. A couple of years ago, went